An awesome new purchase that we made for the studio, and that is a pair of focal shaped twin monitors that are absolutely fantastic. And I researched quite a few other manufacturers, and one of the main things that I was looking for is a monitor that would have minimal ear fatigue. When you have been doing music and mixing and being in front of a set of monitors for about 30 years, it does a number on you, and it does a number on your ears. And when you're young, you really don't pay attention to those things. You're going to be listening to things a lot louder, most likely. You're looking for that rush and that excitement that a good studio monitor is going to offer, whether it be near field or other. And what I noticed is that with the monitors that I had been using, that I think it was just time for an alternative and to come up with something that was very accurate and very smooth. Now, there's a couple of rules of thumb that are out there that I've noticed. There's some people that are like, NS10 style monitors, let's just get something that's super harsh. And if you can make it sound good on that, then it'll sound good on anything. I guess that's one way of doing it. After a while, that NS10 harshness is going to work against your ears. And I believe that there's a potential for tinnitus or tinnitus, however you pronounce it, basically ringing of the ears. And I wanted to avoid that because I struggled with it myself. And so I began to pay closer attention to things that I would be listening to that would cause the ringing of my ears to come up. And I noticed that it didn't happen all the time, but it happened at strategic times, and I started paying closer attention to it. I do believe that there's vitamins that can help in that. This really isn't about tinnitus or tinnitus, but this is one of the motivators for choosing the Focal shaped twin, and I have to say that I'm very happy with them so far. I would have to say that, well, I'll get into the sound of, their quality and how they produce and reproduce the sound. First thing I want to do is just take a look at some of the specs of it. So you can see them back here, and they're on the far side. So I've got some Tannoys that are, those are like PB 6.5s, and those are passive, and I've got those running off of a Crown 300, an old Crown 300. And they sound great. They sound really, really good. But as anyone knows, when you're in a studio setting, you want to have multiple monitors to be able to listen to and to be able to make comparisons with. And I'm very pleased to have these two sets, the Focal shaped twins, and then these Tannoys. The Focals, after doing a bunch of research, one of the main proponents that I had seen in the reviews was that they had very little ear fatigue, if any. And I was very attracted to that because it's something that I personally needed. And so they also talked about the bass response, they talked about the clarity, and I can sit here and I can echo that because of the fact we are proud owners now, and that hype is not hype, it's all true. They sound great. And again, I'll get into the sound quality here in a second. So what are we dealing with when you're looking at these Focal shaped twins? Well, you have two 5-inch drivers. I noticed that the Focal design, having this portrait type of design, is very much like the Barefoot. There's a Barefoot monitor that's kind of like that as well. Those are very high-end monitors. And I have not heard that one specifically, but I do notice that the design element is kind of the same. When you look at the drivers of the twin shape, you're going to notice that there's two. They look identical, but they have two different jobs. And so the bass driver is the lower driver on the, if you look at the cabinet, it's the one on the bottom. It's the bass is 40 hertz to 180. And so that takes you into that high mid area. And then what happens is the driver that looks identical, but it's on the top, that's rated at 40 to 2.5. And so 2.5K. And so it's going to handle the basically the high mid range. And then you have your tweeter, which is a M-shaped inverted dome. They call it a beryllium tweeter. It's super lightweight filament. And, you know, the design of these, the Focal design is just phenomenal. They've put a lot of time and energy, not just into these cabinets. They're one of the largest manufacturers of speakers in the world. And their speakers are essentially handmade, and they use different compositing materials to achieve different sounds and different types of tunings and that type of thing. So you have the two 5-inch drivers, then you have that M-shaped inverted dome tweeter. And one of the big deals about that is that a dome tweeter, and my Tannoys have dome tweeters, and most monitors have dome tweeters on them. What happens is there's an element of distortion that takes place because there's no support at the top of the tweeter. And so there's this vibration that takes place that actually causes a distortion. Because of the fact that we've listened to music so long on those types of tweeters, your average listener doesn't really identify that. And when you finally hear a tweeter that doesn't do that, it's pretty amazing because of how smooth it is, okay? So you're still getting the highs, it's just incredibly smooth. And I can attest, boy, they sound really, really slick. The drivers, basically, the two 5-inch drivers have 80 watt. It's basically Class AB amplification, which is a higher end amplification, better than Class D, which most monitors that are powered, that's the type of amplifiers that are in them. And so AB is better in terms of holding power and being able to reproduce the power. And you're going to hear it if you get a pair, you'll hear that difference. You know, with the Shape series. And there's multiple Shape monitors. It's just that the Shape Twins are their flagship shape. Shape. That's funny to say. Within their product line. And so there's that. So what else do we have here? So 50 watts is going to be utilized, a 50 watt amplifier for that tweeter, for that M-shaped tweeter. And it's considered a 2.5-way design, not a 3-way design, because of the fact of how you have two what seem to be identical drivers, and they're kind of sharing the wealth in terms of the frequency range. The other interesting thing about the Shape series is that they use two passive radiators that replace the ports for the cabinet, and it's on the sides of of each one of the monitors. So there's basically, it looks like almost like sub speakers, but there's no power there. It's just it's replacing the port essentially. So where airflow would normally go, it's basically utilizing this technology, and it sounds really, really great. The low end on these is very tight and very pleasing, very punchy. And I really like that as a bass player. I'm a guitar player and a bass player, so I really like to have that punch there. So those are your passive radiators. The other thing is that these are handmade. And if you look online, there are many great videos that are already been produced. Produced Like a Pro, I love that. I like Warren. He's got a lot of great stuff. And he did a review of these monitors as well. And he also did a tour of the Focal factory, and it was just amazing. And what you begin to see is all of the detail that goes into it, handmade, hands-on, human ears, listening, testing. They do have equipment, obviously, that helps in the process, but the majority of what they do is done by hand. And so you have a lot of handmade element, machine tested type of elements. It uses a flax sandwich cone for the shape series, and it's a very interesting looking cone. Sounds fantastic, very rigid. The rigidity of the focals in comparison to other manufacturers is like off the charts. Like numbers that would be indicators of like a rigidity of 40 in comparison to 6,000. I mean, this is the type of quality that Focal is putting into their monitors. It's fantastic. It really, really is. And they're aesthetically beautiful. They don't really look like other monitors in some ways. They have a beautiful wood rounded front, and it really does look great. They look very classy, and I'm very proud to have them in the studio. They're a new focal point and piece that people look at and kind of gawk at, because they look cool, and and it's all about that. It's all about looking cool. So they got some weight to them, okay, and so you're looking at 25 pounds. These things are, they're solid, and not only solid in build, obviously solid in amplification, and solid when it comes to those drivers that are in there. They can be mounted if you'd like to. There's a wall mounting. It doesn't come with it. You'd have to purchase that separately, but it has mounting elements on the back to be able to accomplish that. And the other thing that I really like about it is that it's got adjustable feet on it. And so because of the fact you have the radiators on the side, they have to stay in that portrait element in terms of standing up. You can't lay them down because of the radiators. But one of the things that I did notice, even in keeping them upright, because they have to stay upright, is that the stereo imaging, like no matter where I'm sitting in here, it sounds really great. You can hear everything with great detail, and again, we're going to get into the sound quality of it now, and basically give you adjectives and encouragements on what my first take was. They say that you need to run these for about 10 hours, I believe, and that's like a break-in period. And I've ran them for that amount of time, and boy, they sound really, really good. What are attributes of the shape, the Focal Shape Twins? Very smooth. Very smooth. When you are so used to hearing cheaper monitors that are harsh, you just sort of get used to it. These are not, and they are wonderful to listen to. So not only are they smooth, they're very highly detailed. You hear pieces of the music that you didn't hear before. And you're hearing little nuances, and when artists are creating music in the studio and we're mixing songs together and we're trying to put all these pieces together, the purpose of it is for the audience to be able to hear everything. And if you are mixing blind and you can't hear everything because your monitors aren't giving you the detail, this is not a place where you get cheap in terms of your investment, because without having a great sounding monitor that gives you the detail that you need, you're mixing blind. You don't know what's going on in the mix. And so you get extra mud, or it doesn't translate well. In other words, it doesn't translate from one type of player to another, whatever the case might be. And these are the frustrating elements of mixing. And one of the ways to get around that is to have a great monitor. And so, and this is one of the places where you can confidently spend your money to know that it's going to be worth its weight in gold. Other areas in the studio, of course, there's different elements of analog gear, microphones, these types of things, which are very important pieces that really do not lose their value when you purchase them. And the monitors can fall under that category as well, having a good set or multiple set of monitors to be able to hear to be able to hear with. All right, so super smooth, highly detailed, very balanced. And what do I mean by that? Many times as I'm listening to audio with different sets of monitors that I've used in the past, what I've noticed is that you have to kind of give them a little bit of an EQ boost, in my humble opinion, to be able to get them to sound not so underwhelmingly flat. You want it flat, but you also want it where there is life in the track, life in what you're listening to. And so these are incredibly well balanced when it comes to that. And what I've noticed is that I don't have to add the extra sweetening to get the sound right. Flat just works. Now, there are EQ controls on the back, and I have tweaked those and kind of enhanced certain things, and I'm still kind of messing with that. But yeah, you can get a little extra when it comes to highs and mids and lows, on the monitor, and just to get it maybe to sound closer to what you might be used to, or get it maybe even sounding sweeter than what you've ever had. So those are available to you on the back of the monitor. I talked about it before. The bass is tight, very tight. Kick and bass guitar combination working together sounds great. And you hear this element where many times you get used to distortion in the low end. This has none, okay? It's just rock solid and very punchy when you're listening, to, as I'm working with my own tracks or even pre-recorded music and using references. It sounds real tight in the low end. I mean, all the areas of the audio spectrum are very well represented, but the bass is impressive, okay, in terms of the tightness. Again, no ear fatigue. Those M-shaped beryllium tweeters are fantastic. And you can kind of crank things up. I mean, I have a sound pressure meter. You can kind of see it in the back here. It's kind of going back and forth. It's not necessarily in the most optimal place, but I know that because of the fact it's right by the speaker, what's happening is it's about 10 decibels off, but I already know that. So I already know that, if I'm rocking at about 85 or 90 on it, it's about 10 decibels lower. And just so it doesn't get too loud, because it's real easy when you're listening in a studio, especially for a long period of time. It's almost like the volumes just creep up on you, and your ears get fatigued, and your ears start to get numb, and you're just blasting your ears, and you're just pushing more and more and more. I quit doing that, and I basically decided that it's time to get a sound pressure meter that's going to be right there for me. That's just an aside for all you guys maybe who want to save your ears. I mean, you can just use a phone app and things like that. I like seeing the big numbers. I like just being able to glance at it and just remind me, hey, turn it down. Chris Lord Alge basically says, him and Bob Clearmountain, if you can keep your tracks sounding very energetic at low volumes, they'll translate in high volumes. So the trick is to get it sounding great at low volumes. If you can do that and you can hear everything with detail at low, when you crank it up, you're going to be fine. Because everything starts to sound really cool when you start cranking things up, but then what happens is it's like a false sense of coolness or sounding goodness. I'm butchering the English language right now. But the point is that it's deceiving, and you don't want that. You want to make sure, and you want to protect your ears. We already said that they're punchy. No additional EQ is necessary. Flat sounds great on these, and many times when people talk about, the monitors are flat and yada yada yada, the trouble with that is that again it's underwhelming and it's not even fun to listen to, and it's not fun to mix on, and sometimes it causes just ear fatigue as well. But that's not what's happening here with the Focal Shape Twin. But here is the caveat. The caveat is this. I would highly recommend a sub with these. Yes, I said it. I know Warren on Produce Like a Pro didn't say anything about it. I would recommend it. The bass is tight, but I'm not hearing what I would like to hear in terms of a very round low end. Now, I'm a bass player, and I like to hear that bass growling with the and thumping with the kick drum, and being able to really get that feeling and that hearing the frequencies that are felt, well, actually feeling the frequencies that are felt, and having that a part of it. It just doesn't have it on its own. So when I added the sub, I was pleasantly surprised. When you play it without the sub, it's very detailed still, and it's very detailed with the sub. It's just that now it's more pleasant. I mean, it's like, wow, it's like the sky opens up. And, at this juncture, I'm not using a Focal sub, but I will be getting one in the future, and having just a total Focal monitoring experience, not only for myself, but for clients, and as we're doing mixes for people, to be able to get that to sound very impressive here within the studio. So I would recommend a sub. The other thing that sounds really great through these is cassette tapes. All right. And here at our studio, believe it or not, I use cassettes for references, because a lot of the early recordings, some of the greatest early recordings prior to the digital revolution, these are not compressed at all. There's no compression. And I know that it seems like the format is subpar, but I'm telling you right now that a well-created cassette in most cases sounds sonically better than MP3s, period. And that's, again, might be my humble opinion, and you might have a comment about that. But what I found is the reason why tapes really got a bad rap is because the players were not good. If you've got a good player, you're going to have a really good experience. Here at our studio, we've got a Tascam 122 MK3, and that's like, industry standard cassette deck that you'd find in most studios back in the late 80s, early 90s. And this thing rocks and rolls and sounds great. We've actually done recordings directly to cassette, and we're going to talk about cassettes and tape and all of that stuff in another video. But what I want to share with you is that the analog representation of a cassette sounds amazing through the Focals. It sounds great. Punchy low end, clean highs, just real. The dynamic range is all there, and so pleasant to listen to. And the reason is because digital music has a crunchy, a lot of it has a very crunchy, tinny, it's slappy, but it just doesn't sound like analog. And so when you have the privilege of being able to run, a nice cassette deck like this with some great cassettes, I'm listening to Donald Fagen stuff and Steely Dan stuff, and everything from Michael Bolton all the way to Hysteria by Def Leppard, and these albums that were fantastic, and the cassettes sound absolutely great. James Taylor and all of these old recordings that were done that just sound great. Sting was another one. A lot of his stuff that was done analog is just fantastic and sounds really great. These Focals, man, I'm telling you what, the Shape Twin sounds really great. And so what's cool about it is that I use the cassettes as references, very quick references for mixes that we're doing here. And so if we can make it sound just as good as the focals with the cassette running through, or even an album, I'll use albums at times as well as AB to be able to see, are we close to the sonic space? Because what happens is in these formats, the sonic space is huge. And we just don't realize how much music has been, in some cases, dumbed down, where we're not hearing the dynamic range of the music anymore because of the volume wars. And the interesting thing about a cassette and also vinyl is that you cannot have a volume war because there's a limitation to what that format can handle. There are new types of tape that, limited, but new types of tape that have higher dynamic range than back in the day. And those sound really great. We're going to discuss those at another video. So when it comes back down to listening to analog music through these focals, it's marvelous. And it's like you're there. It's like you're right there in the room with the musicians. It's just that glorious. It's that good. And so would I recommend buying some? Absolutely. If you get the focals that are smaller, you're definitely going to need a sub, in my humble opinion. And even with the Shape Twin, I recommend having a sub. And essentially what they say is that the two 5-inch drivers, you think, well, that would give you 10 inches of airspace moving, maybe 10 inches of bass response. But as we learned, the way that they have this designed, because the low driver is bass, the high driver is like a high mid-range type of configuration. They basically say that the two drivers together are equivalent to one 8-inch driver if you had a two-way enclosure. Okay, so that's basically what you're dealing with in that regard. So that's going to wrap it up for today. I give the Focal Shape Twins high ratings. I also say that if you really want it to sound even better, get a great sub for it, and you're going to be very pleased, I'm sure, for many years. You're going to have accurate mixes, and you know what? You're going to enjoy it. Isn't that what this is about? Even in one of my other videos, I asked the question, why are we doing music? And it's because of the sound, it's because of the song, it's because of how it moves us, and when we cut corners in audio quality for either a convenience or trinkets, I don't think we're doing ourselves a service in that regard. And in fact, I think we're wasting time and energy and money when we could really be doing something fantastic with our art form. All right, so what I wanted to do for us today, when it comes to at least getting a little demo of these Shape Twins, is be able to hear the difference between the Focal Shape Twin in comparison to the Tannoys. And again, the Tannoys are a passive monitor. I've got a Crown 300 basically running those monitors. And so these are a two-way monitor, passive, so it's a completely different thing. These sound really good. Believe it or not, for the money and you can get these on Reverb for pretty inexpensive, but I'm telling you what, they're really a great monitor. Very detailed for what they are. The trick is a really good amplifier on those monitors. Then being able to hear the difference between that and the focals. And what I want to be able to do is, right now I'm running on a lapel, but I don't want you to hear it that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to some condenser mics that'll be in the room, and my hope is that we'll be able to experience maybe the low end and hear the dynamic range of the sonic quality of each one of the monitors better than just through the little lapel mic. So let me set that up real quick, and we're just going to run a track. This track is not completely mixed. It's just tracks of a song that we're working on, and the other thing is so we don't get hit with copyright issues, because it's basically ours. So we can go ahead and we can play this tune so that you can at least kind of hear what's going on when it comes to the sound quality of each monitor. Okay? All right, so we'll get right to it. Hey, it's good to be back. Here's what we're doing. You're going to hear a slight difference in the way the audio sounds. What I've done is I've set up two condenser mics in the room, and this is going to be able to help us to have a greater dynamic sound when it comes to at least getting you audio to the camera rather than working from a lapel. And so these are set up in the room, so I'm going to sound a little bit different here. What we're going to do again, we're going to be running this track called Water Walk, and it is not completely mixed, but it's going to give us an idea to be able to hear the differences between the Tannoys and the focals, and to be able to go back and forth between the two, and hopefully be able to give you a great indicator on hearing the difference and the difference in the quality between each one. I mean, each are very, they're strong in their own way. I do believe that the focals are superior. They sound really, really good. The other interesting thing that I want to encourage everybody with is that it is important to have multiple monitors set up within your recording space and mixing space. And the reason is because of the fact that monitors reproduce audio differently, period. And so depending on what that listening environment is or the sources are and what type of monitor you're using, a lot of this is going to be variable. That is going to affect your mix and affect how it translates. Now, one of the things that made it very cool for us here at Wingman Studios was the ability to be able to switch quickly between the monitors so that you can you don't lose the flow of what you're trying to do. And I basically just set it up quickly to where I could actually turn the focals on and off with a switch, essentially just adding or removing power, and I can quickly then hear what's going on. And then we're still kind of sharing a sub, and so the Tannoys are using the same sub as the focals are, and so it kind of works that out. So they're going to be basically bopping between the two as we go through. And so what I'll do is I'll call it out as I go. And so let's get into this. So this is a tune called Water Walk, and here we go. These are the focals playing first. Okay.
Labor's what we know. The sun goes down and we sail out, cast our nets and make a score. Sometimes good, sometimes not. Sometimes weather washes out.
So one of the things that I hear with the focals, again, the width is really great. Lead vocal, man, I mean, it is right here in your face. Very present and excellent. Drums, incredibly punchy. You can hear all of the effects basically taking place, reverbs, delays, these types of things are very well defined in what's happening. But again, the punch of the kick, or the punch of the kick and the bass working very well together. The other part is the smoothness of the high end, which is just really, really important. So we're going to continue to roll this, and then I'm going to do a switch. And we're going to move over to the Tannoys. So let me give you that right quick. So
tonight the wind will fire like the fish that we caught. Check out in the distance, a light begins to glow. The boys are getting scared, the glow begins to grow. Wipe your eyes, cause this ain't right, apparition or a ghost. Our courage just jumped overboard, the light is getting close. Here comes the rain, here comes the storm, walking along the water.
Okay, so right out of the gate, there is an element of brightness to the Tannoys. There is detail, but it's almost like, remember we talked about this before with the focal, is that it's missing that harmonic distortion. It's missing the harmonic distortion in the high register because of that M-shaped tweeter and what it's made out of, the beryllium that it's made out of. And so you're getting a very clean representation of those highs. So what happens is that things have a tendency to get a little bit more blurry in the high end because of the distortion. They still sound pretty decent. We'll continue to listen. We'll pick it up.
Tonight the wind we fired like the fish that we caught. Check out in the distance, a light begins to glow. The boys are getting scared, the glow begins to grow. Wipe your eyes, cause this ain't right, apparition or a ghost. Our courage just jumped overboard and the light is getting close. Here comes the rain, here comes the storm. Walking on the water is a guy from the shore. Here comes the rain, here comes the storm. What are you gonna do in the midst of this? Keep your eyes on the Lord, yeah.
Going back here.
Caps on the water, interrupts the crew. Every man seems to be in the mood. Double take, is this fake or Jesus for a stroll? I wanna walk and ghost, can you really take its toll? A voice in the distance, a voice we all know.
So, I mean, with the vocals, those backup vocals, just airy and huge. But not overwhelming in terms of, again, like the highs. The Tannoys are defined, and what really helps that, you guys, is the amplifier that's running those Tannoys. The little history, the Crown 300, they consider it like the perfect amplifier. I mean, it was designed for industrial use. I mean, it looks incredibly archaic, but it is a hand-wound amplifier, and it's like 150 watts channel, I think, and it's incredibly heavy. I mean, I gotta say it's like 75 to 100 pounds, something like that. It's crazy amount of weight in this thing, and it looks like something out of Mystery Science Theater 3000. But I'm telling you what, it sounds phenomenal, and it really drives these Tannoys really well. And so it sounds good. I mean, it keeps up with it, and it's a great representation. It's definitely an apple and an orange in terms of, you know, the difference in the quality overall. I mean, I have to say that the vocals are definitely a step up. I mean, they just sound that good. And so let's listen to it a little bit more, you know, hearing some of the low end, and maybe get through the rest of the song here. So again, this is still the vocals. Here we go.
We all know this accent from Nazareth, say it isn't so. Throwing locks in the wind, a bearded smile of hope. Hey there, it's not the light stare, just step out from the boat. Here come the rain, here come the storm. Walking on the water is a half on the shore. Here come the rain.
So again, with the vocals, it's like anywhere you're sitting here and you're listening, the imagery is huge. It's just massive. The Tannoys are big. These are just larger, man. Large and in charge. And you know, messing around with the sub, trying to get that to work just right. And again, I'm not using a focal sub at this juncture, but I will be as time goes on. We're looking at the sub 6, most likely that'll be the sub that we put in here, and that's going to, and we'll probably do a review on it, and as we get it and as we hear, you know, what it can do and the combination of the two. But you know, one of the rules of thumb with the sub is you don't want to overdo it, you know. It needs to be present, and it needs to fill out the low end and not overwhelm what's going on. For myself as a bass player, I like kind of lean toward it a little bit, and I really enjoy having lots of low end. But you know, you have to, you know, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing, so you just have to make sure that you know, you're working that part right. The other thing is like I had shared before, I do believe that the focals work great with a sub, and it needs it. Without it, it does feel a little on the thin side. Even though the bass is very tight in it, it just doesn't translate in terms of maybe filling up the room like I would like to hear it. So that's kind of where we're at. So anyways, my hope is that this was helpful, and I hadn't heard, let's say, demos of the Shape Twins with a track, and then again doing something along these lines where you're not just kind of listening through a lapel mic. And my hope is that the you know, the condensers kind of helped out the sound a little bit. So that's going to wrap it up for today. My hope is that you'll check out those Focal Shape Twins and maybe some of the other Shape products. And Focal's got tons and tons of monitors, very high-end monitors. And so depending on where you want to go, the sky's the limit in terms of that. So my hope is that you got a lot out of this. Thank you from Wingman Studios. This is Pete. I'll be talking to you guys soon.